Hello, and welcome to Stef Talks Trash, the series that explores the intersection of people, profit, and planet through the lens of the waste and recycling industry. I'm your host, Stephanie Valentic, and today I'm talking trash with Danielle Jezienicki, the Director of Sustainability for e-commerce retailer Grove Collaborative.
Danielle, once again, thank you for joining me today. Please introduce yourself and tell me about your personal sustainability journey.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Danielle Jezienicki. I'm the Director of Sustainability at Grove Collaborative. I have been with Grove for about 2 years now. Before that, have been in the corporate sustainability world, was managing sustainability at Williams-Sonoma. And before that, I actually come from the impact investing and corporate communications world. So that's related to my personal sustainability journey. In addition to kind of being an outdoor enthusiast, someone who loves to be outside, like I didn't grow up in like a commune. I'm from New York City originally, and my kind of foray into sustainability comes from, I think two places. So I studied political science and was always very, as a student of history, our use of resources really drives who we are as a society. And the other, and also conflicts. And then on the other side of things, in the financial communications world, when I started my career, the focus was almost entirely on short-term value. And so that really just didn't reconcile with my worldview and my understanding of, kind of use of resources, long-term planning. And so sustainability for me was this answer to the question of how do you plan and, kind of ensure long-term value. And that has to incorporate your use of resources. So I'm so pleased to see the industry catching up now. But I feel like when I started kind of having these conversations or focusing on sustainability, it was really regarded as, there was clean tech on one side and people who use baking soda for deodorant on the other side, but it wasn't such a broad, kind of a broadly understandable concept of like, this is how you set up a company for long-term success. So what I'm really passionate about is how companies can, harness that engine of sustainability as a way to ensure long-term value and brand reputation as well.
And that's so interesting how you mentioned how that all interconnects with your journey. And you found that a lot of things are really short term before. And there's a lot of pieces and moving parts now that sustainability is coming to the forefront and more companies are, promoting and really looking at their ESG goals. So How have you personally seen Grove's mission and value evolve in the past couple of years?
Yeah, so for Grove, the mission and value hasn't changed. So Grove was founded around the question of sustainability. It's always been our North Star. We started because, I think our founder believed sustainable products should be accessible. And there was a huge opportunity to create better and more sustainable products that have the same performance as conventional brands, but offer that improvement in sustainability. So in that sense, Grove's value and mission hasn't changed. I think our influence has. So in the past few years, I think both on an innovation side from our own brands, we've created brands that just continue to raise the bar of performance. So I think Peach is a good example of this. We have a line called Peach Not Plastic, and it's plastic-free formats for hair care and skincare. And it just shows that there is no trade-off between the products that offer sustainability, and the more conventional things that we're used to. And so I think that's, a good example of how we're really just like setting the bar for our industry higher in terms of innovation. And I think in terms of like the way things have changed, in general, we've been able to formalize our goals. So in 2020, we really kind of like moved beyond that focus of sustainable products to focusing specifically on the issue most material to our industry, which is plastic. So in 2020, we announced that we'd be plastic free by 2025 and that we would be plastic neutral as of that year. So really kind of taking responsibility for our plastic footprint. And I would say that's where in the last couple of years, we've made the most progress in kind of formalizing sustainability into this framework of ESG and materiality. So I think kind of you see a lot of brands say like, oh, we're sustainable, we're this, we're that. And it's all nice. I love, the focus on it, but I think the next step, which is where Grove is really leading the way, is kind of taking that question of sustainability and putting it squarely into your focus as a company. So for us, that's plastic free. So how are we disclosing our plastic footprint? footprint. So we're the only company that I know of that puts out a plastic scorecard. So we disclose the many metrics by which we track our progress towards plastic free. And to me, that's really the coupling of this concept of sustainability and ESG, as you mentioned, to kind of showcase that this is how we view our future as a company. We've made tremendous progress on plastic development. And I think the other thing I want to mention is our shift into retail. So in 2021, we entered physical retail in Target for the first time. And I think that was a big marker in making sustainable living more accessible and helping consumers, kind of take this focus on beyond plastic where they might not have otherwise kind of known about it or thought to make that change.
What challenges and what opportunities do you see with this plastic-free goal?
Yeah, so I can start with the challenges. There's no shortage of those. The reality is that our industry, the CPG industry, has been built on the back of cheap and seemingly disposable single-use plastic. And so it's just part of our daily lives. Like, I'm sure you obviously are paying attention to these things and how difficult it is to do something like go plastic free, reduce plastic in your life. And so I think, the way I think about it is what we're trying to do is really move a cruise liner here. Our industry has a ton of resources towards innovation on the product side, but not on the packaging side. So our challenge is, I think, moving into primary non-plastic packaging is kind of a more linear path. But when you get to that last mile of closures and sprays and, the things that our formulated products, rely on for performance, those things don't exist yet. So I would say that's kind of one of our, first and foremost, areas of focus is how do we innovate or kind of show demand for the areas that don't have alternatives? Because if there isn't a plastic-free alternative, great, you kind of know your path forward. But if there isn't a plastic-free alternative, you really don't have solutions at hand. So your options are either, work with your industry to do something like find a plastic-free sprayer, which would love for that to exist. And then I think the other thing is think about innovation in your actual product format. So, for example, Grove launched hand and laundry dish seats. And so those are really cool. They are, again, plastic free, these concentrated little tabs. I don't know if you've seen them, but little kind of tabs, like a film almost, that you put in your hands and then you add water and it turns into soap, or you just drop it into the washing machine. And so I always tell, kind of parents of a toddler, you want your kid to wash their hands, this is magic. So that's your other path of innovation, so moving completely away from format. So sorry, I'm giving you some context to showcase that the challenges are either, you change the format of the packaging or you change the product itself. So that's a lot of work. Why would you do that if you don't think plastic is a problem, or if you're dedicated, so anyway, so that's the challenges. Is really moving our industry away from single-use plastic and getting to that last mile. I'd say the other challenge is maintaining affordability. So we've been really focused on making sure that natural products are accessible. And so, in order to change formats, we need the industry to change with us. We're not planning on, of course, certain solutions do exist, but this needs to be an industry-wide and accessible solution. So I just want to call out that the solution isn't going to natural products that are, become more expensive. This needs to be scalable. This needs to be available to every brand. And the other thing I want to mention is that our goal to be plastic-free is not that Grove on its own is plastic-free and everybody else is in plastic. Our goal is really to change our industry, to show that consumers are interested in these changes. And, we all can do this, together, move the industry forward. So then on the opportunity side, so I talked a little bit about product innovation. I think it ultimately leads us to make cooler and better products. We have the uncompromised performance, the lower price point, and the reduced environmental impact. So this forces us to make better products and to innovate into solutions that, I think, we're starting to see more and more focused consumers want them. There's less of an environmental footprint. There's less of a carbon footprint, for shipping around more concentrated products. So there are a lot of benefits there. And then I think the next, opportunity, I would call it, is collaboration with brands and vendors. So we're not the only brand that wants to be plastic free, but we hear from a lot of brands that we work with, especially in our third party working group, is that this is something they've wanted to do and they appreciate the nudge, And I think when we launched the goal, I was personally really nervous that our third-party brands would be up in arms. Why are you doing this? This is going to make things so complicated. And we've been met with almost no resistance. I mean, obviously there's trepidation about how challenging this is, but nobody's like, why are we doing this? I have not heard that from one brand. And we hear over and over again, like brands are really, they want to do this too, but it's just really hard to do. So I think by bringing our industry together and collaborating, kind of truly in the spirit of collaboration of moving our industry forward, we've really deepened our relationship with our brands and our vendors. And I think, kind of created this phenomenal network of brands that are, really values aligned. I mean, in the truest sense of the word. And then I think the last opportunity is obviously moving our industry. So, showing our industry that consumers not only welcome these change, but demand them, I think will move our industry forward in a way where I'm really grateful that Grove has that, kind of influence to do that. And in the last 2 years, some great stats that we have are that, since we've set this goal, our plastic-free products have already avoided almost 2 million pounds of plastic from entering the landfill. So we're starting to reach numbers that are really remarkable, that this change kind of shows you that the opportunity is right in front of us. The numbers are huge. Consumers are there. It's really time to make these changes. Our products are 31% plastic-free and increasing. And in this year, we're expected to get to avoid another over 2 million pounds of plastic. So these are remarkable. We've set this goal 2 years ago, which in the scale of things is a short amount of time. But, as you look at the footprint and the impact we've made on, our customer base, that's really remarkable to me.
Yeah, and that's absolutely incredible that you're kind of seeing this shift that consumers are asking. Do you see them become more educated and more knowledgeable about it on their own? And where are you filling those education gaps to kind of teach them about these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think consumers absolutely are becoming educated, and I love to see this shift. I think even in the past couple of years during the pandemic, the focus on plastic-free has increased as maybe people are spending more time at home and seeing their recycle bin fill up with things that are not getting recycled. And one thing that we're really focused on is educating consumers on the fact that really only 9% of plastics are getting recycled. So no matter what we put in our recycle bin, the state of the recycling industry, I mean, I don't need to tell you as a reporter, kind of someone focusing the waste industry, that recycling is really a broken issue. So I'd say, like, when we talk about plastic, a really important place for us to educate our consumers about is the concept that recycling isn't a solution. So I think, kind of connecting that dots for consumers where they're like, oh, well, yeah, I use plastic, but I put it in the recycle bin, so it's fine. And for us, the focus at Grove is, first of all, plastic has a lot of problems, and we'll educate you on those, all the way from the beginning of life based in fossil fuels to single use to end of life, causing pollution, degrading into microplastics. And that's where our plastic neutral program comes in terms of collection. And then, this concept that recycling is not the solution that we need. Really, recycling is not solving our problems. It's not happening at the scale we've been led to believe that it has. And I've loved, some of the documentaries and the coverage that's come out really showcasing the problems there and how that's been, an issue kind of, or a false narrative really led by the plastics industry and by the fossil fuels industry. So I see that as really our responsibility as a brand moving away from plastic to educate on, recycling is not what you think it is. And we really, kind of doing the right thing is just requires, doing the right thing as a brand for us and moving away from plastic is, something that, we feel strongly about. And I think, like, we can bring customers along and they really want to be part of the solution. So what we've been seeing from customers, as you said, more education, more enthusiasm, just increased demand. Like, I love reading through the responses we get through our customer happiness team. Just kind of raising these really detailed questions that, come directly to me and I answer them to the best of my abilities, but really kind of like everything from customers who ask where our carbon offsets, what standard our carbon offsets are certified to, all the way to like specific formulation questions. I definitely see that enthusiasm and that education increasing.
We're talking about the role of business, the role of consumers. How do you see the role of government in legislation and extended producer responsibility plan?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this. So we at Grove, the way our plastic neutral program works is that you kind of understand the concept is we're collecting 1 ounce of plastic for every ounce that we ship to customers. So financially, the way this works is there's a cost of using plastic. So we either, kind of tax ourselves for using plastic in terms of, kind of paying to have that plastic collected, or we impose that charge back to our brands, and they get with that, a detailed plastic scorecard on their use of plastic. So we think of this as an internal EPR system. So we are tracking and really taxing ourselves, like creating an EPR around our use of plastic. So given that we do that internally, obviously we very naturally support anything related to EPR on this legislative front. And we think that's a really important national solution. So we were in conversations with the proposed Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act. And we're really, we're in close conversations with the California Recycles Act, hoping to be involved there. But we are extremely supportive of EPR because we need to, I think we need to raise that question of end of life needs to be brought. That's the only way things are really going to change. If we don't talk about end of life at the point of design, then we keep kind of just flooding the environment with these plastics with no concept of like who's going to collect them, who's going to pick them up. But it really needs to fall to the producer to take responsibility. We've internalized that at Grove. We're already doing that. And it's difficult and it's expensive. And we're doing it because we're a values-led company. But this is an incredibly important lever for change on the industry level. And, we're super supportive of any legislation that starts to formalize that.
It was fantastic to hear from you today, hearing all your different views, Grove's mission, and how, really sustainability has been at the core since the beginning. What does the future hold for Grove, and where is its role in the circular economy?
Yeah, this is something I'm really excited about personally. So in the concept of a circular economy, so we've made incredible progress, I think, in reducing our plastic footprint, and we'll continue to do that and move towards our goal of being plastic free. As we do that, decarbonization is a big priority, as is materials recovery. So when we think about a circular economy, we're really thinking about it in the purest sense of, the concept. So as we think about a circular economy and the role we play in that, so when we transition away from plastic, our goal is not to transition into other single-use materials, but really to convert to reuse and refill. So that's really our focus, is how do we build these systems of circularity that enable home essentials, high performance, no trade-off home essentials that are, kind of offer all the benefits of sustainability, to be just part of a consumer's day-to-day life. How do we shift that mindset? So we're really focused on, I think the role we see ourselves playing in a circular economy is in connecting those dots, kind of moving from plastic free to reuse, refill, materials recovery, and decarbonization. Those are all kind of to me, they're all one challenge. You start down the road of how do we get back? Sorry about that noise. How do we get packaging back? And then you quickly realize like you need to think about, the carbon footprint and how do you incorporate that packaging back into your supply chain? So this question is one that is a really, that incorporates, I would say, like all of our pillars of sustainability, from plastic to carbon footprint, to kind of general sustainability and materials use. It all really ties together. So I'm really grateful that our whole industry is just a buzz about the word circularity. So I see us doing a lot more in reuse and refill, and hopefully, and that's something that needs to be, again, like an industry-wide solution. We can't do that on our own, just like the plastic free question, is one that we are certainly not going to solve on our own.
Well, thank you once again for joining me today. It was great to hear from you, and I look forward to see what Grove is doing in the future.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for covering this important topic and for digging into, you had great questions, and I really appreciate your taking the time to cover this.
Thank you once again for joining me for this episode of Stef Talks Trash. For this and other episodes, please visit waste360.com. And remember, don't be trashy.